Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Anniversary edition.
Anniversary edition. Yes, the week this comes out is our 6-year anniversary of our first episode.
Yeah, which is wild. And we did this a year or two ago. I don't remember. Please don't go back and listen to episode 1 to reminisce
Yeah, it's
because
so rough.
oh, it was rough.
Ugh,
It
yeah.
was rough.
You know what? We tried.
We tried too much was the
You know
problem.
what? I want to meet a podcast that says, we're so proud of our first episode. I
That's
feel like
true. Yeah.
every podcast I listen to is like first ones were rough. Like
Yeah. You gotta find your
I
footing.
know. Yeah, I know Affirmative Murder put like the first 10 behind a paywall because they were
Yeah.
like, we can't have these on the internet for free.
I mean, I feel like if we ever get famous, that'll have to be
That might
the
happen,
route
yeah.
we go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But also in true fitting anniversary fashion,
In true
as you can
2020
hear,
fashion.
true 2020 fashion, as you can hear, I'm a bit sniffly. I am recovering from COVID. Apparently had
Yes.
COVID. Apparently people still get COVID in
I know. I'm
2026.
like,
I
how
did
embarrassing in 2026,
in
Courtney.
2026, I
Yikes.
know. Well, because I said, who gets COVID still? And Kevin was like, a lot of people. And I was like, I know, but I'm just saying. When
He's like,
I
let
went
me
to
pull
the
up the stats
doctor,
and tell you.
yeah, I know. When I went to the doctor, I thought they were going to be like, yeah, you got allergies. And she was
hmm
like, oh, your strep test came back negative. I'm still waiting on your flu test, but your COVID test is positive. And I was like,
You're
what?
like, what? We still doing
That
that?
one wasn't even on my radar of like possibilities.
Yeah.
But it's not been too bad. It's just, didn't realize there could be so much mucus in my nasal cavities. So,
Yeah. That's always a rough time.
yeah, but very fitting way. By the time you hear this, though, I'm basically recovered now. But
Yes.
I hope I'm fully
I
recovered
would hope
in a
so.
few weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm not still sounding like this in your next episode. So,
And if you'll remember from our very first episode that was recorded 6 years ago around this same time, Courtney mentioned COVID, and hopefully that ages well and you know what she's talking about because at that time, nothing had shut down yet. It was this like
yeah,
on the horizon thing that we were hearing a little bit about that wasn't a thing. Like no one had
yeah.
gone
It was
home.
like,
Like
oh,
it
we might
wasn't,
all, there was talks of a 2 week shutdown, and a two
yeah.
week shutdown, it'll all be fine. Nothing will happen.
What a time.
What a
What a
time. And I said, yeah, I
time.
hope this ages well. And here I am 6 years later, still eating those fucking words.
I mean, we really started out with a bang though. Like we,
I know. Yeah. Oh, good times.
yeah. Yeah. And thinking about like all the different spaces that we have recorded this podcast in, because like this is the third house that I've lived in since we recorded. And I've also
Same.
recorded in multiple rooms in said houses as I kept having more children and having to use the extra
Yeah, that's
room.
true. Yeah, because I've lived the
That's your third
first,
as well, right?
third, yeah,
Yeah.
because I had the one apartment and then the townhouse and now the house.
hmm
Um, kind of stuck to a room, but I'm
Yeah.
not having children, so I didn't have to move around for anybody.
Those kids
So,
kept getting in the way of my podcasting space.
but
Now I just had to kick my
yeah,
husband out of the office. So yeah.
yeah. So somebody's got to move. Somebody's got
Ex-
to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. So here we
But
are,
yeah.
6 years later, still doing this.
Still going. I
Having
know
a
you
good
have two
time,
kids now. You didn't have that 6 years ago.
right?
Um,
Crazy.
Trying to think what else. Um, yeah.
We won't even get into the all the changes in the world and this country that have happened in the last 6 years
No, we're not
because
talking about that.
no, we don't need to do that today. But
We're
we can
already
talk
about
about some other sad
to make you
stuff.
sad.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about that because there's a lot of podcast and social media people who are doing a great job of keeping you timely informed. We're not one of those.
Nope. Nope.
We record 2 weeks in advance, so everything we say is very outdated by the time you hear it. So,
Yes. Yes.
well, I guess we should just lean into the sadness and just go ahead and go. I do want to give a
Yeah.
trigger warning for this episode. There is some discussion of like baby death. We do not go too in depth. We don't go, it's not very gruesome, but I would recommend maybe if you're pregnant and about to have a baby in a hospital, maybe don't on this
hmm
one. Or
Or if
just
you're
no.
freshly postpartum, or you just know yourself and you know I do not want to listen to
Yeah,
this
if this brings up
episode.
something from your
Yeah.
past, anything like that, just putting that trigger warning out there.
Which I did when I saw this episode. I did take a picture and send it to Courtney, and I was like, "Thank you for the trigger warning. Yes, I will be passing on this episode, but apparently, as the co-host, I do not get to do that. So here I am."
Yeah, you would have to find a replacement. Someone else would
Yeah,
have to come in because
or
I
just have
can't tell the
Andrew come
story
in.
by myself. He's gonna
I'll
be
just
like,
tag
I
team.
don't want to listen to this.
He's like, "No, I don't want to do this either."
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So our resources for this episode is a Netflix documentary called The Investigation of Lucy Letby, a People magazine article, an article from Northeastern University, and an article from The Guardian. So Lucy Letby is currently serving a life sentence after she was convicted of murdering 7 infants while being a neonatal nurse. But did she actually do it? So, Lucy Letby was born on January 4th, 1990, in the UK. She went to the University of Cheshire. It's so hard for me with these English words because they don't pronounce T's. Um,
It's so tough for us Americans over here.
it's so tough. Cheshire. Um, So Lucy was an only child, and her parents doted on her. Lucy loved learning and wanted to know everything, and she eventually got a job at Countess of Cheshire Hospital. But the nurses there could be quite cliquey, so it made Lucy and one of her friends, who was also new, like feel like they didn't really want them there. Her friend felt like they were just like going out of their way to make things hard, especially for Lucy. And her friend didn't want to stay at the Countess. She was like, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. But Lucy applied for a job in the neonatal unit, and her friend was kind of confused about why she stayed. But, you know, people make their decisions. So Lucy's parents were so proud of her for graduating and even actually put like a thing in the paper for it, kind of like you do like marriage announcements. They had like a graduation announcement they put in there. So she officially started working at the Countess in 2011, and things on the neonatal floor were as normal as they could be up until 2015. So this is when baby Zoe, this is a name change. So all of the babies referenced, baby Zoe's the only one we'll use like a synonym for or an alias for. Guys, the mucus in my brain. I called an MP3 a PDF earlier. So
Words are
what
hard.
word was I trying to use there?
Pseudonym.
Pseudonym.
Yes.
Okay.
You were close. You were really close.
There. Um, anyway, her name has that baby's name has been changed and no other babies were like named. So just know when we say baby Zoe, that is the name change. So she ended up collapsing 3 times on one night shift. And collapsing, from what I understand, is the UK's way of kind of saying coding, like we do, where they kind of have
Okay.
to be like resuscitated.
Yeah.
It took me a little bit. I was like collapsed. I was like, what does that fully mean?
Yeah.
But that's kind of how they use that term.
That makes sense.
So they knew Lucy was at the cot side, but she didn't say anything. And she didn't really like recall any collapses, like when asked about it later. So baby Zoe had been born after 60 hours of labor in June 2015, and her mom felt something like wasn't right, and Zoe's mom insisted on a C-section. So Zoe seemed to be struggling to breathe, and she had to be taken to intensive care. Doctors said she was responding well, there were no concerns, but one of the nights Zoe started collapsing and her mom was brought into the room. So the doctors kept trying to get her heart pumping, but unfortunately it didn't work. And Zoe's parents were obviously angry and confused. Like the doctor said, everything looked great, everything was improving. Like, how did this like suddenly happen? So Dr. John Gibbs was also really confused because she had been improving, so it didn't make sense why she like collapsed, coded, and then also why she didn't respond to resuscitation. So what they also found concerning was that Zoe was the third baby to die in just over 2 weeks, and some of the babies showed a strange rash and didn't respond to resuscitation as well when the doctors felt like they should have. So they're like, it's kind of weird. They're all having this rash. They're not responding, like kind of what's going on. So the doctors hoped that it was just like a really unfortunate coincidence, but the deaths did not stop. One of the doctors said that the babies were dying far more quickly than he'd ever seen on their unit, and by February 16th, there had been 9 deaths. So some of the consultants asked for an urgent meeting with risk managers and the director of nursing in the hospital, but they didn't seem concerned. They were like, it is a neonatal unit, you know, didn't see anything that really was like raising red flags for them. So in June 2016, things too came to a head with 2 more deaths, which they couldn't explain. And so by this point, between June 2015 and June 2016, there were 13 like unexpected deaths. So kind of a
Yeah,
high rate.
that feels like a lot.
Yeah. Um, so in May 2017, Cheshire police got notified from Countess of Cheshire Hospital about 3 separate reports of increased deaths and catastrophic collapses within the neonatal unit. Um, and like we said, between that year, there were 13 deaths, and they were mostly concerned because many of the deaths and collapses like weren't explainable. So like it wasn't like, oh, this baby was born and we kind of knew they weren't going to survive. It was kind of like, you know, a mystery on why it happened.
Yeah, just like unexpected deaths that, with all the information they had, they would not have expected that in that
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah. So there was a member of the staff who was moved off the unit, and police thought it was a little bit premature to try and like find a suspect because there could be a lot of different reasons. Could there be mistakes at the hospital? Could there be an uncontrolled disease that was happening on this unit that like babies were getting sick and that was happening? Or was they just like natural deaths that kind of happen? So they needed to understand the medical circumstances for each baby, and the police wanted to be sure to get independent medical consultants who would give an objective view of the collapses. So Dr. Dewey Evans first found out about the investigation, actually through the newspaper. It was like written that there was being an investigation. So he was very interested in the case. He had over 30 years of experience in taking care of sick babies, and he also had several decades as a medical expert in court. So he asked to look at one case to see if he could see anything. And the case he looked at, the baby was born in good condition and had been stable, but suddenly collapsed. So Dr. Evans saw photos of marble-sized blood clots under the liver plus blood bleeding in the abdomen. And he found this very odd because the baby was born in good condition and stable. So how did the baby get like such severe liver abnormalities? And then within a few hours, the baby was dead. So it's like, how did it kind of all this happen in what seemed like a short period of time? So Dr. Evans now wanted to look at all the case notes over the 2-year period, and he got 32 cases and identified a suspicious event in about half of them with babies collapsing. He'd never seen this in his experience. He was like, this is a lot. I've never really seen this rate of babies collapsing. And he believed someone had intentionally harmed the babies. So now police are taking it to the next level because they're like, okay, this is bad. We could have someone who is in these units hurting babies. Like, we have to really start looking for a suspect now to make sure this doesn't keep happening.
Yeah.
So they examined everyone who had been in the area when a baby died or collapsed, and a clear pattern emerged. So out of 25 suspicious deaths and collapses, one name came out consistently, and the nurse had a central role in all the events, and that was Lucy Letby. So Lucy was a quiet nurse, but seemed very competent. Nothing seemed off or strange about her. But by the end of 2015, all of the consultants were worried about the deaths on the unit, and when staffing reports were returned, only Lucy Letby was on duty for all of the deaths. So that's not looking great.
That's a big piece of circumstantial evidence there.
Yeah. So Dr. Gibbs discussed it with the neonatal charge nurse, but the charge nurse was confident that Lucy was competent. She was dedicated. There's no way she would intentionally harm patients. They really didn't believe any of that. Um, but unfortunately, more deaths happened at night when Lucy was on duty. So the senior managers then moved her to day duties. So the deaths and collapses at night stopped, but they started to occur during the day. So they're like, okay, now it's kind of following her around. So the consultant said they could not be delayed any longer, and they did move her away from the neonatal care unit. So when police started kind of investigating everything going on, Lucy did email the police about the investigation. And she actually called it by the operation name, which hadn't been released publicly. So she was aware of colleagues being spoken to and just wanted to know when she was going to be talked to. She was like, I know there's an investigation. I know you're going to talk to me. I just kind of want to be like prepared, want to let you know like what's going on. So police are like, well, maybe she like has something to tell them. Like maybe she's wanting to tell us something about what's going on. And they really wanted to ask Lucy like questions, I guess more specifically, and the only way to do that was to arrest her. So police contacted baby Zoe's parents to let them know they had arrested someone, and the mom said when she saw it on the news, she recognized the nurse immediately. She said the first time they visited Zoe, that she was there with a clipboard, like she wasn't doing anything, she was just kind of watching. So during Lucy's interviews, she was calm, engaging, and knowledgeable. They asked her about the full process of resuscitation, and she could answer everything. So, like any medical questions they asked or like processes, she was very confident, knowledgeable. She would answer them. Um, but they felt like she was more evasive when asking about her role during some of these events. They felt she put, quote, too long of a pause between answers, but also, I could see her trying to think very hard because, again, this investigation did not happen until May 2017. So it had been a year or two since all of these happened. You probably know I've been arrested. I need to be very careful with how I'm answering. I don't know if I would put that as like damning evidence that she was pausing on like her role when these specific babies
Hmm.
were needing resuscitation.
And like I said, like she probably had to think back on it. Like you have so many cases in that time period, you probably have to stop and think, okay, what was I doing? What did I do in this case? What was my role? Like, I feel like that's not a huge red flag specifically.
Yeah, and I feel like it's important to remember too, she is on like a neonatal, like she's basically in the NICU. So these aren't babies born like perfectly healthily,
Yeah.
nothing, these are babies that need extra care because
Hmm.
something happened during the birthing process or, whatever. So I think it's probably more common that she maybe saw babies having medical issues, stuff like
Hmm.
that. So unfortunately, it might not stand out in your mind as much. Like an ER doctor probably sees
Yeah.
something a lot more than a doctor on a floor sees. So it's like
Hmm.
he's not going to remember it where the doctor who was only seen it one time is going to remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense. So she was in custody for hours, but they didn't have enough evidence to charge her. So she was put on bail after the interview. They had gone through her possessions and found a box in her room labeled Keep, and it was full of baby handover sheets, about 250 of them from the hospital. So they had personal info on them, and some of the documents had info about babies who'd collapsed and some who had died. There were also a lot of diaries and post-it notes. So they found this concerning and wanted to get her back in custody for questions about it. She said she just brought them home and forgot to empty out her pockets. She basically said, I'd had it in my pocket when I came home from work. I put it in the box. That's kind of it. They were, however, organized in date order and seemed very organized. So police were like, that's kind of weird that you're just throwing it in a box, but it's like very neatly organized.
And I feel
It
like
also,
too, if you like accidentally brought it home from work, it was in your pocket or whatever, why would you not take it back to work the next day, you know?
yeah, like why wouldn't you?
Like why would you keep them
Yeah,
in a box if you did accidentally bring them home? Like clearly you realized, so instead of taking them back to work and putting them where they belong, you put them in a box specifically.
yeah, it's very odd. Um, And again, it's 250 confidential medical records. It's not just a handful. She says she put them in a box because she didn't know the proper way to dispose them and she didn't have a shredder to destroy them. However, when they searched the home, they did find pictures of a shredder in the home. So they were like, okay, well, you said you don't have a shredder, but it's right here. I don't know what her reasoning was for saying that, but they also found some concerning details in her diary. So, on some dates, she would write initials down, which matched the initials of potential cases they were investigating. And there were days that had asterisks on them, and she said it was related to days that babies were unwell. She said she did it for her own reflection. She said she didn't talk to anyone about it and wanted to make sure she took her own time to reflect on kind of like what happened, kind of like, hey, like I need to like make a note and like have a few moments, which I could also understand. Like you're having really hard days, you kind of
Hmm.
mark it down on your calendar. People say to do that, like find, oh, you're sad for a bunch of days. What lines up with it in your calendar,
Yeah.
you know?
And like if you're, practicing as a nurse and things are happening that you're like, oh, maybe I mishandled this situation. Like I want to stop and reflect on what happened, what my role was, what I could have done differently. Like if there's something I need
Mm-hmm.
to learn more about.
Yeah. So, in the second set of searches, they also found a black bin bag in her garage, and there was paper with notes on it, and some said murder and murderer. Some said no one will ever know what happened and why. And when asked about them, she just said no comment, which I completely understand. Her lawyer's there. He's probably like, don't answer that. Don't answer
Nope,
any of these
don't
questions.
say anything.
Don't say nothing. So the murder and murderer written down is odd, but no one will ever know like what happened and why is objectively a fact since the doctors were confused too. So writing down like no one knows what happened, no one knows why, the doctors were saying the same thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that part's damning, the murderer, kind of weird, but it's one of those things where I feel like it's a lot of circumstantial. So like when people are talking about it, like every little thing, they're like, "Isn't this crazy that she
Yeah.
paused for 10 seconds before answering?" And I'm like, a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, sometimes
So,
it's in these situations like you look at every little thing that could possibly
mhm,
have something to do with it and you like pull all these pieces out and you like over criticize things that you would not have in a different situation.
yeah. So Lucy was arrested again and charged on 8 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder, and she spent 23 months in custody awaiting trial. So the prosecution's opening statement was 90 plus pages, so very long. And they said there was a number of ways that Lucy harmed these babies. They ranged from physical trauma, like removing the oxygen from the babies, as well as overfeeding. And they believed she was creative in the ways she would kill them. When Lucy was asked if she remembered baby Zoe, she said no. And this was consistent with what she said in her interviews as well. For baby Zoe, they did find skin discoloration that doctors had not seen before, and they also found air in a blood vessel in the body known as air embolism. So this would kind of like stop the circulation. So there was a 1989 study from a Canadian doctor who found with embolism in babies that was also showing the skin discoloration and was seen in many of the babies at the Countess Hospital.
So the defense did push back on Dr. Evans, who testified for the prosecution. So the defense pointed out that some babies were ill at birth and just got worse, or in other cases, treatment was not sufficient enough. Because remember, these are sick babies. Like this is not a just like baby floor in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. Like this is specifically for babies who are sick and need extra care. There was not enough evidence to prove injection of air, and Dr. Evans believed that there was no way the air accidentally got into the circulation. So Lucy was criticized for being too stale at this time and like not showing enough emotion, but one of Lucy's friends was interviewed in the documentary and was like, well, she also would have been criticized if she was making a big show of emotion. It's like you can't win in these cases,
Yeah.
which I agree with. Like no matter how the defendant acts, everyone interprets it in their own way and it's like it's too much or it's too little or
Yeah. And I feel like also I feel like most of the time, like defendants are like coached on how to act in court. They're like,
Yeah.
don't show emotion, don't do whatever. And so it's like, oh, she wasn't showing any emotion. But then if she like started crying, they'd be like, this monster, how's she crying? You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Like it was,
exactly.
they couldn't be happy either way.
Yeah. And evidence was also present that Lucy had texted coworkers about baby Zoe's death and the parents' emotions. She said it was very sad and their job was hard. And they asked Lucy about this, and she said again that she didn't remember anything further about baby Zoe, which again could be if you were caring for so many infants at that time. Sometimes things just don't stick in your memory. Not defending her. I don't know if she did this or not. But just
Yeah.
throwing some thoughts out there.
I also feel like too, like if we're looking objectively and maybe Lucy Letby didn't have anything to do with it, that's a lot of babies dying in a year span.
Yeah.
So maybe that is kind of rubbing together in your brain that you're like, I
Yeah.
can't specifically remember her case
Hmm.
versus someone else's baby's case.
Yeah. And if she did not do this, like that's still also very traumatic to you as a nurse. It's like you may block
Mm-hmm.
things out because of that trauma, you know?
Yeah.
So during the trial, Lucy was asked about her Facebook searches because it appeared she had looked up baby Zoe's parents. The defense argued like she was just being nosy. This had nothing to do with anything. So a lot of this evidence is circumstantial, but just like doesn't look good for Lucy. But the prosecution believed there were two cases that they had undeniable evidence for. So there were two babies that she had given insulin to when they did not need it. And obviously, it's very dangerous to give insulin to someone who does not need it. Like, it can lead to coma or even death. Like, it's a very serious thing. And Lucy's defense team said, like, yes, this happened, but it must have been someone else. But Lucy's initials were on nutrition bags that experts said had been contaminated with insulin. She said she did not administer the insulin, and the bags were kept in a fridge with the insulin, and Lucy had a key to both and the opportunity to do so. So this could have been accidental or deliberate, but the prosecution is arguing that it was deliberate, which I feel like even if it's accidental, that's part of you have to be able to keep your meds straight, and like that is like a
Yeah.
very serious charge, even if it's an accident.
Yeah.
So the prosecution also really wanted to pin down the why, like what was her motive for this. So this is where some of those post-it notes came in that they found during the police search. They were filled with like random phrases and words. One said, "I killed them." Another said, "I'm evil. I did this. I don't deserve to live." One said, "I killed them on purpose." And when asked about this in the interviews, again, she said no comment. But the prosecution really felt like this was their smoking gun. The prosecution also presented on other children, one whose parents said their baby was left with irreversible brain damage and quadriplegia, cerebral palsy after being given excess milk and air. And another doctor also testified that he saw Lucy standing over a baby whose oxygen was dropping and she did nothing to stop or help. So Lucy's friend thought it was odd that the defense didn't call any expert witnesses to the stand. The prosecution had an expert like appear saying everything they wanted, but the defense did not bring in anyone who could say otherwise. And I feel like with a lot of these circumstances going on, like you would have been able to find someone who could point to reasonable doubt, you know?
Yeah. Because, like, Dr. like Dewey Evans was basically like the big expert witness. So
Mm-hmm.
he was in here being like, she clearly gave them insulin. She clearly gave them this. She clearly gave them that. And is testifying to all this. And the defense is just being like, pushing back on him, but they're not calling their own expert witness who could be like, oh, this could be an hospital issue that the
Mm-hmm.
insulin is kept next to nutrition bags and there could be
Mm-hmm.
leakage. Like, were they kept, you know, perfectly apart or could
Yeah.
there be some contamination? Like, you're not bringing anyone else who can kind of like fight back to what this expert witness is saying. You're just trying to
Mm-hmm.
like cause reasonable doubt, I guess, but you're not really doing a great job.
You're not giving anything to back it up. You're just saying like, nope, just find
Yeah.
this. Yeah. So Lucy was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 others, and she was sentenced to life in prison. So now, in September 2024, Mark McDonald took an interest in this case. So he's a defense lawyer, or barrister, as they say in England, and he felt there was no motive and no footage of this happening. So I thought you were going to say something. So he believed it was all based on a theory and came in a long line of cases in the country and also internationally that were not tried properly. So Lucy's parents approached McDonald and asked for his help, and he said yes. So, as Lucy's friends mentioned, and as we just discussed, he was also baffled that the defense did not call any expert witnesses. The smoking gun were these post-it notes, and then they also got released in the papers. But what they didn't talk about is how there were also notes that contradicted themselves. They said slander, discrimination, victimization, bastards, just all these random words kind of on both sides of this legal battle that she's in.
Hmm.
So Lucy said she wrote them after she was removed from the unit. She felt like they were blaming her practice and that she might have hurt them through her practice, and she felt guilty. She was blaming herself because of how other people were making her feel, and she really struggled to cope with people like blaming her for these deaths. So when she was dismissed from the unit, she was given therapy through the hospital, who told her to write down her feelings and her thoughts as a form of therapy. So these were not confession notes, but just a way for her to cope with everything going on as her therapist told to do. Like just kind of a brain dump of like, all these different places that your brain is currently going.
Because I feel like too, like through my therapy and stuff like that, it's like sometimes you're like you have to say like the things that are on your mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're like, am I a murderer? Like, did I
Mm-hmm.
do something? Like, did I do this? Like, what, you're just like writing all this down and then you don't expect then that to be pulled into a court of law and be like, oh, well, you said this,
Yeah.
It always makes me think of like, I try to never text being like, I'm going to kill so and so or I'm going to kill you because then that gets
Yeah.
brought up in like court and it's like, I didn't actually mean that. Like, it was,
Exactly.
so that's one of those
Yeah.
things. It's like, again, very circumstantial when they thought these post-it notes were like their hard evidence.
Yeah. And two, if she's a nurse who was caring for these babies and she feels like I did something wrong medically that led to the deaths of these babies, like maybe she is internally calling herself a murderer. Like she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I did this, like I'm responsible for this, I killed these babies when maybe she didn't really or intentionally, but she's wondering if like she made a mistake that led to these babies' deaths or whatever.
Yeah.
So, an article written by the New Yorker magazine dissected everything that went wrong in the trial and turned the spotlight from Lucy to the Countess of Cheshire Hospital. So, this planted a seed of doubt, and they asked if this unit was fit for purpose, and maybe was Lucy just the scapegoat? So, the unit in general had been struggling. So, nurses would cry at the end of their shift because of the stress, and they were just so overworked, and they didn't always have the staff and resources necessary to take care of that many babies. Lucy's friend, who also worked on this unit, would recall being left alone with a high dependency baby and being told, the baby will probably be fine, but if they go blue, just give us a shout. And at the time, she was a student nurse and should never have been left alone with a high dependency baby. So there were a lot of supervisory and medical practices going on in this unit that were not ideal.
Because if that's the case, maybe the baby is not responding to resuscitation because the time between when you started
Yeah.
resuscitation and when it should have started is so long.
Mm-hmm.
If you're leaving student nurses and you're like, this is a neonatal unit, but you know what? If it's blue, just yell. We'll handle it then.
Yeah. Yeah. So during the trial, they did show the highlighted schedule showing that like Lucy was always working, but it was a very small unit, and Lucy had taken extra courses and was one of the more qualified nurses on the unit. So she would be given the sicker babies because, again, she was more competent and knew what she was doing. So kind of would make sense that more things would go wrong when you were caring for the sickest of the babies who were there.
Yeah.
And McDonald felt like it would be more odd if she wasn't there when something went wrong.
Yeah, with if you only have like so many staff and it's like she's here every time and it's like, okay, well, so is half of the other staff
Yeah.
is here when it's happening. So it's again like seeds of doubt
Mm-hmm.
of like I don't know whether she did it or didn't do it, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's the evidence you have is not as damning as you think it is.
Yeah, yeah. And the defense kept saying that as soon as Lucy left the unit, the deaths decreased. But also, as soon as she left, the unit was downgraded, so they did not receive as many babies that were seriously ill as they did before. So naturally, the mortality rates would drop if you're not receiving the sickest of the babies. So McDonald needed to change the narrative, and he wanted to get this out into the world. So McDonald also discussed Dr. Evans, who was the prosecution's lead expert. So he had come up with this initial hypothesis, and it all centered around him and his reliability. Like we said, he was very well respected in the field, had like decades of experience as a doctor, and also testifying in court. So during the trial, an appeal judge emailed the judge on the trial saying Dr. Evans makes no effort to provide a balanced opinion and saying that he would tailor his evidence. So he says, like, this doctor is biased. Like, he is just changing his evidence and opinion based on who is hiring him.
Yeah.
So McDonald found the authors of the article about air embolism, Dr. Shu Lee. So Dr. Lee was very concerned, so he decided to look further into it. So while looking into the evidence, they did not show the same skin discoloration that was diagnostic of an air embolism. They had described skin discoloration due to hypoxia or a lack of oxygen. So this would mean that the conviction was wrong, and Dr. Lee was happy to assist in the case. So he was going to get a panel of 14 of the top experts from around the world to take a look, and they wanted to write a detailed report about the cause of death or injury in each case. In February 2025, Dr. Lee came to London to show his findings. So they found that the medical findings were incomplete. There were misdiagnosis of diseases in these babies, inadequate numbers of appropriately trained personnel in the unit, and difficulty in finding a doctor when the need arose. So again, that long time between when an infant is in distress and when resuscitation is started. So they did mention baby Zoe and said that she was born after ruptures of the membrane and that the mother should have been given antibiotics right away to protect the baby, and that was not done. There was a delay in starting antibiotics and treating respiratory distress, and they also did not find evidence of an air embolism. So Dr. Evans does not agree with Dr. Lee and thinks there is no new evidence, just a new opinion.
Which is kind of weird because, like, Dr. Evans' whole case about air embolism was based off of Dr. Lee's whole study and his
Uh-huh.
paper. And now he's like, Dr. Lee is wrong.
Yeah,
And
he's like,
I'm
nope,
like,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
well, you did base your whole
Mm-hmm.
argument on this article. So I don't know if you can say it's fully wrong, but
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows?
So the panel did not believe there was any proof of intentionally harming the babies or murder. Now, social media went wild again, so they're wondering, like, what is going on? Like, could Lucy actually be innocent? And Mark McDonald is pushing for an appeal. A few people are comparing this to those who have been convicted of shaken baby syndrome. Like we discussed, there are now what we see to be different medical circumstances that appeared the same as shaken baby syndrome, but were not. So we have seen some people who were convicted and had their convictions overturned, or some who it just looks very murky at this point now with the new information and science that we have available to us. So they're also saying that female nurses and caregivers are being blamed unfairly in these deaths of babies. No one ever saw Lucy inject the babies with anything. And again, everything is circumstantial evidence in this case. Like there is no forensic evidence that points to her have anything to do with this. There's nothing like concrete, no eyewitnesses. It's all circumstantial. In October 2024, the UK government launched a public inquiry to examine the Countess of Chester Hospital and their implications after the trial. Constabulary?
Yeah, I think it's constable, like you said it.
Okay.
The constables, the police,
The police.
the police.
So Constabulary launched an investigation into corporate manslaughter at the Countess of Chester Hospital at the same time. The Countess did not comment any further at this time due to the ongoing inquiry and police investigation. In July 2025, the police submitted additional evidence about 9 further babies, but on January 20th, 2026, they announced that they would not be charging Lucy Letby any further. There have been talks of trying to present more cases, but there's been no update so far. And Lucy's original defense attorney did not comment on why he did not call any further experts in the trial. Lucy will likely try to continue to appeal the case. So Lucy is currently at HMP Low Newton in Durham, England, which is a high security prison. Baby Zoe's parents had another child, a little boy, and they talk about her often. Other victims' families said that they would not be watching the Netflix documentary. And obviously, this case has a lot of people divided on whether or not Lucy Letby did this. I mean, this is it's a
It's
conflicting
kind
one
of
for sure.
it's a tough one because I just don't know. Like it does look very bad that like all these happened when she was there and then they move her to day shift and then it's happening there. But I'm like, is that her murdering babies or is that her being incompetent? Which I mean also brings its own set of questions,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more on the hospital than on her
Yeah.
necessarily. Um, I don't know. I just find it so weird and I find it weird that like all like they're saying she did this, but she changed up the way she did it so often. Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if you know for certain, if I put insulin in these babies, they're gonna die and that's gonna
Mm-hmm.
whatever. why is that not what she's doing every time? Why is
Yeah.
she like overfeeding them, which I'm like, obviously is bad, but I don't think will lead to death every time. You know, it's
Hmm.
like maybe she doesn't want to get caught, but I'm like, just that every single instance was like different. And now we have this whole air embolism question mark. And then I don't know. I just feel objectively from the case stand or the trial standpoint, I don't know if there's enough hard evidence to be like, she did it 100%.
Yeah. I feel like in these cases too, there's usually more like medical evidence of what happened to a baby, and
Mm-hmm.
that's able to be used to figure out maybe if someone did something to the baby. Like obviously there's the insulin one. Like that one's questionable. I will say that one I feel like flagged for me more than anything because they do have an exact cause of what happened to the baby. But then like the air embolism, it's like they can't find anything to prove it. So it's like, okay, that's a great theory, but if we cannot pinpoint like this is exactly what happened to this baby, then how are you going to claim that that's what she did to kill a baby? You know, like I feel like there's
Yeah.
typically more, it's like, oh, you can see in the heart, the lungs, the this poison, the like there's something very specific that happened to that baby that you're then going to uncover. And I would assume all of these babies are being examined after when they realize like, okay, this is happening so frequently. I mean, I feel like it would probably happen anyway because even though they are in a neonatal unit, like this is still a baby dying. Like they do still want to know what happened to this baby, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if there's such like a question mark around it and it's
Yeah.
like I don't know, for me, because there's like a lot of heat on the hospital as well. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what else is going on
Yeah.
here? Like, oh, the babies were given insulin. Was there a charting error? Were the babies
Mm-hmm.
placed in like were they short staffed so they got the babies mixed up and like one baby needed it and one didn't? Like there's so many things where I'm like I feel like if you had like a real defense attorney, you could be like, let's bring
Mm-hmm.
this up where should insulin be next to the nutrition bags in the fridge?
Yeah.
Because how do we know there's not going to be an issue there?
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know.
And how do we know too that like the hospital did not train her incorrectly on certain practices? You know, it's like maybe
Mm-hmm.
they told her to do things that are not really in line with medical best practice, but it's like this is how we do things because we're short-staffed, because, you know,
Yeah.
it's cheaper, it's whatever. Like, was someone training her to do things in an incompetent way that now, like we mentioned before, like is she just a scapegoat for all of this?
Yeah. I feel like I can't say whether she did it or she didn't do it. If she did it, it's kind of crazy. Just like the way like she presents herself and like the footage of the interviews, like I don't know. She just seems so like, what do you mean I'm being like just I don't know. She doesn't seem like some mastermind, but that's usually the ones that are the masterminds, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah.
I I don't know. I feel like this one is just extra heated because it's like a neonatal nurse and it
Mm-hmm.
revolves like babies where people are just like the second they hear it, they're like straight to jail. We hate her, all of
Yeah.
that. And I feel like with like high emotions like that, it's like hard for people to like see any other.
Yeah.
But for this one, I have no idea whether she did it or not. If I'm honest, I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't even point to, oh, I feel like this is the more likely scenario. I have no idea.
Yeah. Because I'm like, again, is this something of like her intentionally killing babies or is this her being incompetent?
Hmm.
Also, something I thought was very strange is that she officially started working there in 2011 and none of this happened until 2015. So
That's
I'm
true.
like, why wouldn't she have started in 2011 if
Hmm.
she was,
Yeah, like why would she wait? Yeah, I don't know.
it just seems, everything seems odd.
Yeah, nothing seems quite right in this case.
Yeah, and maybe this is just like because the UK like holds things real tight with
Hmm.
cases, so we don't have more case details. We just have what people are saying, but it's just very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. But if you watch
Yeah.
the documentary, let me know. Let me know your thoughts. I was telling Jacqueline, there's two people who they interview who were digitally anonymized. Um, so they basically AI'd their face
Hmm.
instead of just putting them like with a shadow where you can't
Yeah.
see them.
Just so weird, I feel like. Like, and there's like their voice too, I assume. Like, I assume their voice has been altered.
I guess so.
Hmm.
I don't know.
So
But it's like
weird.
there was a lot of scenes of them talking, and it's just like
Oh,
you can tell because their faces look just so shiny.
hmm. Interesting.
I mean, they at least like announce it on there so you know,
Yeah,
but strange. Don't know
that
how
is
I feel about the
strange.
use of AI and some of this stuff, but
Agreed. Agreed. Well, to try to end this episode on somewhat of a positive note, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
so my perk of the week is that even though I got sick,
Mhm.
I had just a really nice like week in general. I just had like a lot of events going on that were really nice. So I had a Valentine's Day party that was super fun. We had our annual Super Bowl party, which was fun, and then Kevin and I got to go back to Baltimore for my future sister-in-law's bridal shower. So we got to spend time with like my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. She's basically my sister-in-law. I don't know
Mhm.
why I'm saying future. She's been
Right, she
she's been
already is.
family since she's been family since the day she came around.
Yeah.
But um yeah, so it was just nice to see family. It was nice to like hang out with friends, especially the Valentine's Day party. It was just like all women and we were just like eating and we were making bouquets and cards and then we were singing
Oh.
karaoke and it was a peak girlhood moment, you know, where you're just in a room with a bunch of girls singing.
Hmm.
My friend decked out her house, like all of her light bulbs were pink. She had
Oh,
like
that's
full
cool.
pink decorations.
Love it.
It was just so fun. So just like really good like moments like that. So
Hmm.
even though I was
Nice.
sick, it was still fun. I wasn't sick. I was only sick
During
for the
the events,
Baltimore
yeah.
trip. Yeah. But but yeah, it was just super fun and getting to see family, getting to see friends,
Yeah,
traditions, all of that. So always a good time.
that is fun.
Um, but yeah, that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
I feel like our perks of the week this week really showcase our extroverted, introverted personalities because my perk of the week is that today I got to go for a 50-degree run for the first time in like 4 months, and it was just perfection. Like it just was so nice. Like when the weather is just like that perfect, like the sun is out and like it's not too hot, but it's not too cold, and it just feels delightful, and it was lovely. And
My favorite thing is when Jacqueline lies to herself and calls herself an introvert.
my favorite thing is when you somehow think I'm an extrovert.
I'm just saying, you ain't ever at home.
That is true. That is true. The last 2 months I've been home more than I have in the last like 2 years, but a lot of that is
Yeah.
weather related. So,
Yes. Yeah. It
but
was, I went to a lot of fun things. Did before those events, I say all I want to do is stay home? Yes. But I went out and I
see,
did
it's
it, you
like
know?
you go out and you do the fun things, but then I want to come home and have no one talk to me and sit on the couch and read my book alone for 2 hours, which never happens because I have two children and they don't understand
Yeah.
that. But
There's nothing more extroverted than having children. Come on now.
that is true. That
Just
is true. That I
saying.
think that's what has shifted me more towards the extroverted side, and I don't want to be here, but I'm here. Like
Yeah.
having an extroverted child who wants to talk to anyone who even slightly makes eye contact, and also those who don't make eye contact is a really hard time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Like,
gonna have to teach her stranger danger. Put a little
yeah,
bit of fear into her.
a little bit, just the tiniest sprinkle to like maybe not talk to everyone you see. We were
Yeah.
at Chick-fil-A yesterday, and there was like a family next to us at the table, and I guess she like made eye contact with this kid, and she was just like, "Hey, I love Chick-fil-A," and then they're just like chatting, and he's like, "Have I seen you before?" And she's like, "I don't know, maybe I've seen you here before." And I'm just like, "Girl, can you just eat your chicken nuggets?"
Can we just eat in silence?
So yes, it's
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, let
Yeah.
us know what you're doing. Let us know your thoughts on this case for sure, because I think there could be,
Just let us know what you're doing.
I don't know, what are we doing? We're just
Made me cough.
leaving it broad at this point. We're not even
Yes. Let
nailing
us know
down to
your
the
thoughts on this case, what you've done recently.
just say hi,
Say
whatever.
hi. Let us know if you've been like a day one listener for the last 6 years.
Let us know if you
Um,
powered through episode 1. Thank you.
yeah, if you
Thanks for
came
being
back after
here.
episode one.
Happy anniversary to you, Courtney, and us in this
Yes,
podcast.
happy anniversary. The best anniversary gift ever would be if you signed up on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes.
Yes.
So it's $3 a month. You can help support this little podcast first grader.
Crazy.
Um, but we're also in all the places, all the things, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give us stars, give us ratings, give us likes. You know this. We say it too much. We've
I
said it for
know.
6 years now. You know, I don't have to say it. Just do it.
You're not
Just
even
say
listening
hi.
anymore. You've just turned it off.
Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should do like a code word if you got to this point in the episode.
Yeah.
Message us and tell us this code word. Okay, what should our code
Your
word
code
be?
word is COVID.
Perfect.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, we talked about COVID at the beginning, so that's a little too on the nose. Your code word is Apple.
Apple. Okay, so
Your code word's Apple.
message us Apple or an Apple emoji or
Mm-hmm.
something to let us know that you are still here listening and that it's not just
Yeah.
us talking to ourselves.
It's not just us talking. Yeah. But yeah, in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.